Hey, Meleika, I'm LaShawn Ford, and this is Chicago Hill. And today we're going to talk about the power of the vote.
The vote is powerful. It is powerful.
It's so powerful that I don't care if you're a billionaire and and you got my bank account, my vote is equal to yours. All your money don't mean nothing on election day.
Man.
Ballot.
I wish everybody understood that. Do you think people are losing faith in the voting process? What do you think?
You know, there's no reason to lose faith. There's a possibility that people that lose faith in voting are just people that's not real fighters, because every vote counts. It's been a struggle in America for the right to vote. I mean, as long as it's documented, there have been people excluded and disenfranchised in this country, and there have been people fighting for the right to vote. And people.
I like that you said that people who don't vote are not fighters.
Yeah,
they're not fighters.
I don't want to start a war with anybody, but I do want to challenge them to realize that, you know, you can't throw tantrums because things are not going your way because you voted once. I mean, you got to keep voting. And
exactly.
No matter what, you have to go to the polls and vote, because people spend a lot of money. Billionaires, you know, all over this country know the power of the vote. That's why in states like Illinois, we've had billionaires spend almost $60 million on one election to try to get a Republican elected to defeat a Democratic governor. Why would somebody spend almost $60 million on an election to get their person elected to office and to convince you to vote for them?
Right. If they didn't understand the power, how powerful the vote is.
Yeah.
They know.
They know the power of the vote. And, you know, I'm going to tell you, there are primaries and there are general elections, and primaries have their purposes, and they actually tee up general elections. Democrats and Republicans are fighting for the hearts and soul of their beliefs. Fighting for the heart and soul of their beliefs. The question is, are you going to identify with one of the parties, or are you going to identify with the people that boo but don't vote? You know who said that, don't you?
Who said that?
Obama said, "Don't boo, vote."
Yes, yes. And Obama, I remember living in LA when Obama was running. That line was around, I mean, it circled the block several times over. People came out. It was so beautiful to see people coming out to vote. But like you said, you have to keep voting. So Obama went on this campaign to tell people, look, yes, you voted for the president, but you have to keep voting, because if the right people don't get in the Senate, then, you know, his hands are tied, which, you know, a lot of people blame him for not getting things done, but it's because he couldn't get a lot through because people didn't come out to vote. The voter turnout was so low after the presidency, you know, and people just don't seem to understand that process. You have to keep voting.
I don't understand why people don't understand the process and how voting really matters. This is not cliche. This is the real deal. This is the real deal. Voting really does matter. And, you know, I think that when we look at the 19th Amendment, the 19th Amendment actually gave women the right to vote. And when was that amendment established? We're going to come back to some voting amendments and some points in our American history when the disenfranchised got the right to vote. But can you believe just in 1965, the US Congress was talking about a Voters' Right Act? And Lyndon Johnson, the president, during that time, gave a good speech about the disenfranchised having the right to vote in this country. 1965. I mean, I wasn't born, but we are arguing in Congress and across this country about people that look like you, me, having the right to exercise their power to vote. Let's go to Lyndon Johnson on this.
There is no constitutional issue here. The command of the Constitution is plain. There is no moral issue. It is wrong, deadly wrong, to deny any of your fellow Americans the right to vote in this country. There is no issue of states' rights or national rights. There is only the struggle for human rights. I have not the slightest doubt what will be your answer. But the last time a president sent a civil rights bill to the Congress, it contained a provision to protect voting rights in federal elections. That civil rights bill was passed after 8 long months of debate. And when that bill came to my desk from the Congress for my signature, the heart of the voting provision had been eliminated. This time, on this issue, there must be no delay or no hesitation or no compromise with our purpose. We cannot, we must not refuse to protect the right of every American to vote in every election that he may desire to participate in. And we ought not, and we cannot, and we must not wait another 8 months before we get a bill. We have already waited 100 years and more, and the time for waiting is gone. So I ask you to join me in working long hours, nights, and weekends if necessary, to pass this bill. And I don't make that request lightly. Far from the window where I sit with the problems of our country, I recognize that from outside this chamber, is the outraged conscience of a nation, the grave concern of many nations, and the harsh judgment of history on our acts. But even if we pass this bill, the battle will not be over. What happened in Selma is part of a far larger movement which reaches into every section and state of America. It is the effort of American Negroes to secure for themselves the full blessings of American life. Their cause must be our cause too, because it's not just Negroes, but really it's all of us who must overcome the crippling legacy of bigotry and injustice. And we shall overcome.
Oh my goodness, that was then.
Mm.
And that was just in our lifetime. Not, I wasn't born, but that was in our lifetime. And,
Right.
when I do research, Meleika, that was 1964, 65 when he gave that speech. But, the right to vote dates back, the struggle for the right to vote dates back all the way to the early 1700s. And where it really only limited voting to white property holders. I mean, so, this has been a struggle since as early as the 1700s. And then all the way into the 1800s, the official barriers to voting started to rescind, and they started letting more white people vote. And then you go all the way to 1920s, when 1920, when the women gained the right to vote. 1920, it's a struggle.
Mm.
A struggle for women to have the right to vote. And I think women with this Supreme Court ruling, they're going to exercise their right to vote, and they're going to vote their interests. What do you think?
Oh, most definitely. And just you running down the timeline of who was allowed to vote way back in the 1700s, it shows you the power of it, because people want control of it and they want to block people. They want to keep certain people out. If you didn't own land, if you weren't a certain status, if you weren't a certain gender, if you weren't a certain color, if you couldn't read, they put so many restrictions on it because they know how powerful it is. But unfortunately, some people don't know the power of their vote, and they're still trying to put restrictions.
That's right.
On it because they know how powerful it is.
Yeah. You said it, because it was in the 1960s, the Southern states started setting up these barriers to voting. And the struggle for equal rights came to a head in 1960, as many states, particularly in the South, dug in on policies such as, you said, literacy tests, poll taxes, English language requirements, and more, aimed to suppress the vote amongst people of color, immigrants, and low-income populations. How about that?
Mm.
So from the beginning of the time, this is a sacred, I want to say, right that people have actually tried to take away from people. So 1964, the 24th Amendment targets the poll tax. So the 24th Amendment target the poll tax. Now, the poll taxes were egregious. I mean, it was an egregious form of voter suppression for centuries, following the Civil War, forcing people to pay money in order to vote. That's what so you got to pay to vote.
Oh, wow.
And it was actually So we were lucky that the 24th Amendment was approved by Congress in 1962 and ratified by the states 2 years later. So in 1966, the Supreme Court ruled that poll taxes are unconstitutional in U.S. elections, in any U.S. elections. How about that? Wait, 1966.
That was not long ago.
Not long ago, that people actually really were fighting for people to have the right to vote. Now, we move on to 1965, the Voters' Right Act passes Congress. So it was inspired by voter rights marches in Alabama in the spring of 1965. Congress passed the Voters' Right Act. The vote was decisive and bipartisan. 79-18 in the Senate, 328-74 in the House. Guess what? President Lyndon Johnson signed a measure on August 6th with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, and other icons of the civil rights movement at his side. 1965. Yeah, and so the struggle is real, and some people don't vote because I'm voting. You're voting.
Yes. It really means something. And when you pay attention to even just the local elections, and sometimes you see just how close it is. I mean, there was an alderman here in our last Evanston election. She lost by, 15 votes. 15. That means 15 people, if they had shown up.
Oh, okay. You're right about, when you talk about your local election, you just said every vote matters. Let's go to our clip because you're absolutely right. Let's go there.
What is the power of one vote?
What is the power of one vote?
What is the power of one vote?
Some elections are determined by one vote or the narrowest of margins.
In 1920, one vote in a last-minute decision ratified the 19th Amendment to the Constitution, giving women the right to vote.
In the most recent Boston City Council election, there was a runoff that was decided by a single vote.
History is replete with examples where one vote matters.
What is the power of one vote?
Voting energizes a culture of civic engagement.
Civic engagement is really the glue that holds communities and whole societies together.
Once people vote, they're more likely to learn about what's going on in their communities and take other forms of civic action.
What is the power of one vote?
Voting in local elections is a building block to making change possible for your neighbors and your community.
It's in local elections that some of the most important decisions affecting all of our lives are decided and made.
People absolutely underestimate the value of local elections.
Whether that's impacting the air you breathe, the streets you are walking and driving on, the schools that you and your family are going to, there's so much change and impact that can happen from voting in a local election.
What is the power of one vote?
When you vote, you're also representing those who can't vote.
Not everyone can vote, and you should vote to protect their interests.
They can remind us of the importance of voting, our responsibility to vote, and the difference it can make.
Some people aren't able to make it to the polls, some people are not eligible to vote, and so really thinking about, what policies would be best for our community overall.
The power of one vote is the power to have a seat at the table in decisions that are being made about you, the people you care about, and the communities that you're a part of.
One vote is powerful because it binds you to your neighbors, to your family, to your friends.
It's each of our responsibility to vote. You've got to do your part, and one vote is the one thing that you control.
With your vote, you stand up and are counted. With your vote, you can turn the tide. With your vote, you change the direction of your community. That's the power of your vote.
So why do people feel that that their vote doesn't matter? I mean, it really does matter, and you should feel empowered by making sure you go out and vote and use your power. I mean, you could vote and your vote counts, as I said earlier, just like the richest man or woman in the country. It's the greatest equalizer in humanity, to vote.
Yes, it is. And I mean, look what happened on January 6th. If that doesn't tell you how powerful the vote is, I mean, you had a billionaire who was trying to force votes, trying to get them to illegally find some mysterious ghost votes so that he could say he won.
That's exactly right. He
Mhm.
was calling around trying to find votes because what? Votes matter.
Yes, they do.
That's a good point, Meleika.
Yes, they do.
Let's look at the history some more. So in 1971, that's when young people actually gained the right to vote. I should say the voting age was lowered from 21 to 18. And that's the 26th Amendment, where the voting age was lowered from 21 to 18, simply because people were feeling like we could fight in the war, but we can't vote. And so a Republican, Richard Nixon, signed the 26th Amendment to lower the age to vote. So here we are still, time's going on and more changes to government dealing with voting.
What can we do to get people to understand? I mean, what we're doing right now, we're trying to get people to understand. So he's given them some history. They've witnessed for themselves on television, if they're watching the news, that the powerful fear you coming out to vote. Okay, so I don't know what else we can do or say.
Well, I mean, let's keep saying how much change has happened and how much people have fought. Now, when you talk about all this stuff happening in our US Congress and across our states, you know, just from a simple bill like teaching accurate history, that didn't come easy.
No, it didn't.
And it's simple. And so all these changes that we're going through from the early 1700s through today didn't come easy, and people fought and actually died fighting for these rights. Look, 1975 Voters' Right Act expanded to protect language for minorities. So Congress added new provisions to Voting Rights Acts to protect members of language minority groups. The amendment required jurisdictions with significant members of voters who have limited or no proficiency in English to provide voting material in other languages and provide multi-language assistance at the polls. So another fight in 1975. But here's a big one. 1982, Congress requires new voting protection for people with disabilities. So Congress passed a law extending the Voting Rights Act for another 25 years as a part of the extension of Congress requiring states to keep steps to make voting more accessible for elderly and people with disabilities. So the Voting Rights Act of 1965 has to constantly be extended.
Well, one, it's a shame you had to create it in the first place, but it should just be a human right.
That's right.
Well, I don't understand. You got to protect. We got to keep protect. You got to extend the protection.
The unalienable right to vote. That's what it should be. And so that's what people have to realize. That's what's at stake here. When we talk about protecting the Voters' Right Act, we're talking about not just Black people. We're talking about the Voters' Right Act protects people with disability and older people as well. That's what it does. And so those people that say, oh, well, the Voters' Right Act doesn't bother me because I'm white. Well, guess what? If you got some disabilities,
right,
and you're older, there's a possibility that there could be some discrimination against you. We're in this together.
I mean, everybody should just be able to vote. I mean, who would you say shouldn't be able to vote? I can't think of a group. I can't think of a type a person that shouldn't be allowed to vote?
I can't think of a citizen in this country that should be denied the right to vote.
Mhm.
And, during President Obama's presidency, June 2013, the Supreme Court strikes a blow to the Voters' Right Act. In its June ruling in the case Shelby County versus Holder, the U.S. Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act because the court's decision states any and all localities with a history of suppression voting rights no longer were required to submit changes in their election law for review. It was ruled 5-4 on a decision of 5-4 that they strike down the 1965 law that was key to protecting voters in states and localities with history of race-based voter suppression. So 1965 Voters' Right Act, just like what we see with the women Roe versus Wade being stricken. In 2013, the Voters' Right Act was struck by the Supreme Court. That's because our vote matters. We have to determine who's going to be on those benches.
Mm-hmm.
Trump did a good job at capitulating to the Republican Party, didn't he?
Yes, I was going to ask you what can we do at this point in terms of Roe versus Wade? I mean, of course, you got to get to the polls and vote for those judges, but is there anything we can do like right now outside of voting?
With the striking down of Roe versus Wade, it goes to the states' rights.
Okay.
That's what it's all about. Now, people in each state have to elect people that will protect the right of women. And so that's what's important.
That's all we have. That's the power of the vote.
So thinking about that, what did President Biden say about the Voters' Right Act in 1965? He was at a school in Georgia. I think he was at Morehouse. And we know that Biden being elected, we got a better chance of protecting the Voters' Rights Act than we would with a Republican president like Donald Trump.
Sadly, the United States Senate, designed to be the world's greatest deliberative body, has been rendered a shell of its former self. It gives me no satisfaction in saying that as an institutionalist, as a man who was honored to serve in the Senate. But as an institutionalist, I believe that the threat to our democracy is so grave that we must find a way to pass these voting rights bills. Debate them, vote, let the majority prevail. And if that bare minimum is blocked, we have no option but to change the Senate rules, including getting rid of the filibuster for this. Last year, if I'm not mistaken, the filibuster was used 154 times. The filibuster has been used to generate compromise in the past, promote some bipartisanship, but is also used to obstruct, including especially obstruct civil rights and voting rights. And when it was used, senators traditionally used to have to stand and speak at their desk for however long it took. And sometimes it took hours. And when they sat down, if no one immediately stood up, anyone could call for a vote or the debate ended. But that doesn't happen today. Senators no longer even have to speak one word. Filibuster is not used by Republicans. to bring the Senate together, but to pull it further apart. Filibusters have weaponized and abused. While the state legislative assaults on voting rights is simple, all you need in your House and Senate is a pure majority. In the United States Senate, it takes a supermajority, 60 votes, even to get a vote, instead of 50 to protect the right to vote. State legislators can pass anti-voting laws with simple majorities. If they can do that, then the United States Senate should be able to protect voting rights by a simple majority.
There we are, still fighting. President Biden still fighting to protect the right to vote in 2022. Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. And to those who go out and vote, just imagine if they didn't, where would we be right now?
Oh,
Where would we be right now? We wouldn't be able to vote. LaShawn, you probably wouldn't be state representative.
right.
You know?
It's unbelievable. We talked about the ruling that struck down the Voters' Right Act, and near the end of Justice Ginsburg, she made in her dissent, she had an analogy to illustrate why the Regional Protections of Voting Rights Act were still necessary. And she wrote, throwing out the pre-clearance when it has worked and is continuing to work to stop discriminatory changes is like throwing away your umbrella in a rainstorm because you are not getting wet. Not getting wet because you got the umbrella. So, I just don't understand why. I really don't. I mean, you have to tell me why we don't have 90%, 99% of voter participation in this country. Why do we have 15, 13, 12% voter participation in some places? I don't understand.
Do you think people have lost belief, lost hope, kind of just thrown their hands up, just kind of letting whatever happens? Many of us are about, as best we can, controlling our destiny. And some people don't have that mentality.
Yeah. And they don't have the mentality. They don't have, should we look down on people that don't vote? Is there something wrong with them? I heard you say that they may not have the mentality. It's a right, so they don't have to do it. So what am I complaining about because people don't want to vote? It's their right. And rights could be, you could use your right or you don't have to. So
I don't know that we look down on them, but it really needs to be a conversation with those who don't vote. Really needs to be a conversation to really dig into deep, like why? Because, you've had the conversation with some will say, well, my vote doesn't matter. But history shows, yes, your vote does matter. So they can't go against the documentation. So then you ask again, so why aren't you voting? And then their thing is, well, the people that I want to win never win.
Yeah, I mean, are we winning even if the person that we want to win don't win? Can we look at voting as winning when we defeat the one that does harm to us or that could do harm to us? Is it a matter of saying we're going to take, what is it, the less of the two, or the
lesser of the two evils?
Yes. Is that the way voting should be looked at? I mean,
a lot of that's definitely one you hear, was the lesser of the two evils, and I'm just not going to vote for either evils. No, you got to vote. You gotta vote.
Yeah.
You have to. And no one is perfect. Politicians are human, no one is perfect, but you know which one has more of your interest. You know which one has a proven track record of fighting for you. All you got to do is look into their history. And if they've never ran before, this is their first time running, you look at the work that they've done in their community.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of question people that's never ran and never done anything to have a track record on who they are. Just coming in, you are taking a risk on a person that has no political experience of working with people. And, today it could, there used to be a time where people used to say that they didn't think it was necessary to vote because there was no difference between the two parties, right? You can't tell the difference between the Republicans and the Democrats.
You can't say that now.
But what you mean? What you mean you can't say it now?
You could definitely tell the difference. One has a heart for the people, for humanity as a whole, and try to be as peaceful as they can, when I really think they should come out swinging sometimes, but they don't, because they're about humanity. And then you have another party that is strictly about big corp money, the rich, and they could care less about anything and everything else. There's really no excuse. There's really no excuse. And you should just take the time to look people up. Look them up. I mean, you look up State Representative Shawn K. Ford. Look him up. I looked at, when I first heard about you, Rep. Ford, I looked you up on the Illinois Gov website, and I saw all those goddamn bills. I was like, how is he keeping track of all this? I mean, you can see where a person's soul, what they're fighting for, who they're fighting for, based on the legislation that they've been pushing, sponsoring. And even just, the aldermen in your area, if they've never ran before, you have the opportunity to sit down and talk to them, see where their head is. What kind of work have they done in their community? Have they sat on any commissions or committees? I mean, there's so many ways to find out about a candidate to see if they have your best interests. So when people give that argument, the lesser of the two evils, you'd be surprised what you could learn about an individual.
Yeah. So Meleika, we talk about Democrats and Republicans and fascism. I wonder who is closer to those policies and that extremism. What we're going to see is a clip of Cornel West on Fox with Hannity pre-Donald Trump's presidency in 2016.
Don't you find the race card repugnant? You do.
Oh, absolutely.
Let me play Hillary Clinton. I want you to objectively tell me if this is playing the race card.
Mm-hmm.
Republican governors and legislatures are erecting one barrier after another that make it harder for black people to vote. It's a blast from the Jim Crow past, and we need to call it for what it is. And in state after state, they're doing everything they can to stop black people, Latinos, poor people, young people, people with disabilities from voting. It's a blast from the Jim Crow past.
Do you know anybody that's trying to stop black people, Latinos, poor people, young people, people with disabilities from voting? Do you know who's doing that?
No, I think there's no doubt. I was just talking to my dear brother, William Barber, Reverend Barber, the king-like figure of our time, about the voting suppression activity there in North Carolina. As you know, there's a court case going on right now.
But do you know anybody that's actively trying to stop people from voting?
Well, it's not a question of motivation. It's a question of effect and consequence. If, in fact, we see that it's harder for black people, brown people to vote.
How's it harder?
Well, no, that's what the arguments are about. That's what the arguments are about.
But when she talks about Jim Crow past, I thought, and then she goes into a Southern, I thought we were done with that in the 60s.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Come on, wait a minute. That's playing the race card, isn't it?
Well, it's
come on.
it's her attempt to be fake and phony and try to mobilize people who want her to vote. Because, I mean, you and I know the country's in deep trouble, though, Shawn. You know that you're having a meltdown on one side and a breakdown on the other. I mean, I think that Donald Trump himself is a dangerous neo-fascist in the making.
Oh, stop it.
And you know what I mean by that? You know what I mean by that?
Neo-fascist. You just throw out these words. Stop
it's true.
it.
It's true. Because you know what neo-fascism is?
He's a nationalist and he's populist. And he's with conservative leanings. That's not a fascist.
Autocratic sensibility. With the Muslims, the Mexicans, and not only, look what he said about the press.
They didn't go into great details about fascism, but when we look at what happened to the voters' right act being stricken, the women's right to make decisions about their body with Roe versus Wade being stricken, that sounds like fascism to me, when people are acting more like dictators about what you should have a right to do.
Exactly.
Is that some oppression to me?
It's very oppressive. I can't believe we're 2022 and we're being oppressed still. That's crazy. Absolutely crazy. I was looking at that clip. My heart goes out to Hillary. Good Lord, my heart goes out to her, because everything she was saying was so true. And she was trying to warn us. She was trying to warn us. And my heart goes out to her because she put up a fight. She really did.
So, I mean, I think it boils down to voting for fascism versus democracy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what
it comes down to.
It's on the ballot. And I don't understand. It's a lot of things I don't understand. But I really don't understand how people actually vote to have people become dictators over their lives when this country is built for a more perfect union to give you rights that give you life, liberty, and the ability to pursue happiness. But yet people refuse to vote their best interests.
I think those people are thinking they have a one-track mind, and that's keep us above all, the Black people and people of color. That's all they're thinking. They knew Trump had that sort of mentality. That's all they're thinking. They're not thinking about, oh, well, they might take rights away from women. It's like, did that not occur to you? Did that not occur to you? And now it's here. So now what do you have to say?
No, that's right. I'm going to tell you, that's exactly right. I mean, the more and more I think about how voters actually vote against their own best interests, the more and more I feel like our democracy is being wasted. Because guess what? We knew, and everyone knew, that health care for everyone is a right.
Right.
Obama and the Democrats put it on the books. Trump campaigned and said, I'm gonna roll it back. He told people, I'm gonna take away your right to see a doctor. And they voted for him. Trump campaigned and said, we're gonna stack the deck at the Supreme Court so that we can roll back the hands of time by striking down the Voters' Rights Act, by making sure that we strike down Roe versus Wade. He actually said it. He told people when he campaigned that he was going after Roe versus Wade, and people actually voted for him, knowing that they were in support of Roe versus Wade, because studies and polls show 70% of the population, 2 out of 3 people believe Roe versus Wade should stand. And yet they voted for Trump when he told them that he was going to take it away. Okay, so here we are today fighting for democracy. And in your opinion, are we turning to a fascist state?
I'm afraid so. I'm afraid so. And it's all because people are not doing their research. They're not really looking into the issues. If people had really listened to what Trump was doing, what he was saying, they wouldn't have voted for him. And Roe versus Wade would not have been overturned because he wouldn't have been in power to appoint these Supreme Court judges with their harsh religious views on women. So I think some people just get caught up in the hype of a person. They get caught up in, well, I just want to make sure that I'm not the low man on a totem pole, and he's the guy to make sure that that's not going to happen.
You know, do you believe, Meleika, that people vote by popularity? They vote like they're in high school and they vote for the most popular person?
I believe that. I do believe that. And what's interesting was when Obama was running, I mean, people were really looking into his history, work that he had done in Chicago. I mean, Black people, they wanted to make an informed decision. And though, yes, you have some Black people who are like, yeah, I'm voting for him because he's Black. Yes, absolutely. Yes. But you had a lot of Black people who were looking deep into it, you know, can he do the job? But for some reason with Trump, the things that he was saying was letting you know that he was going to turn this country into a mess, an absolute mess where you wouldn't have any say, any power, any control over your life, your destiny. And based on his choices, look at where we are right now. Roe versus Wade.
I don't want people to miss what you just said, because it's real that electing him, you will not have control over your life. That seems like a big statement that makes no sense.
But it's proven to be, look at where we are.
Where are we?
So a woman cannot control what she does with her body. She cannot control. She can find herself in a situation, and because of Trump appointing people with views like himself, now she has to put herself in a dangerous situation, or travel across state lines to control her destiny.
What if she can't afford to go?
She's going to put herself in a dangerous situation, or she's going to go ahead and have that baby and, you know, pray for the best, you know. But point is, a woman should have that choice.
Yeah. The good thing is, you know, primaries are setups for the general election. If you miss the primary election, you still have the general election. And I'm not going to tell you the date of the election. Look it up. Look up the general election date and plan to vote. I'll give you the month. It's in November. And let's vote for people that understand your issue, that care about your issue, that will listen to your issues and be truthful with you about wanting to support your issues. So Election Day is a holiday to me. I mean, it's a serious patriotic holiday that people should celebrate by casting their ballots.
And, you know, I would think people would see it that way too. So you have people around the country who will call in and vote for American Idol and Dancing with the Stars. they'll I know it's a crazy comparison, but I have a point. I have a point. They will follow those contestants for weeks and call in and vote, and you don't really even know these people, right? So when it comes to the elections, these are candidates that are actually controlling your life. They will have say in what happens and how you can take care of your family, your household, how you're going to live, your health care, your environment, everything. So just like how you put in all the time and attention on TV shows and voting for this and that, this is the most important vote of your life.
Yep. This election, you're right. It's a vote for life. Your issues are on the ballot. So much for elections being holidays. We just passed, and now Juneteenth is a national holiday. Democrats in America want to make Election Day a holiday. But when you listen to Hillary Clinton, she talk about Republicans, and you listen to other people that talk about voters being locked out and not being able to vote, making it more difficult. The Republicans are against making Election Day a holiday. Democrats say, let's do everything we can to promote and celebrate our democracy. And the Republicans say, no, it's not a holiday. It's nothing to celebrate. Making the Election Day a holiday simply is America's way of raising awareness about the importance of voting. And Republicans will say, we're not stopping people from voting. The polls are there. They should just go. Why you keep saying black people are being locked out of the polling places? Well, Hillary said it well. She said it well, and maybe we will replay her words about that because she laid it out. We'll close with Hillary Clinton's words again because it's worthy of hearing it again. And Meleika, in the name of justice, in the name of democracy, I hope people feel the power in their bones to go out and exercise the right to vote. And Meleika, I'm gonna kick it to you, and we're gonna close with Hillary Clinton's words again about how Republicans are trying to block people from voting. And I know, Meleika, people will say, they can't stop you, but it becomes more difficult. So maybe we change the terminology a little bit and say they're stopping us from voting, because there's been many, many gains. And we've talked about it from the 1700s all the way to today about how things have gotten better. So we have to take advantage of it, but there's still voter suppression out there.
Yes. And the fact, and I really want people to get that message. The fact that January 6th happened lets you know the power of your vote. It lets you know the power. People, they were willing to kill and lynch because they understand the power of your vote. People, get out and vote. I mean, we do our best to control our destinies, our households, our worlds. But if you don't put the right people in leadership, what just happened with Roe versus Wade, it's only going to get worse. We're dreading right now what they're about to decide next. They're taking us backwards, and it's all because people didn't get out and vote. You didn't treasure, you did not hold your power to vote where it should be. It should be priority over social media, over voting on a TV show, over all those things that you take the time to vote on. This is about your life, and it is very, very important They're trying to take us backwards. Pay attention. Wake up. Pay attention.
You know what, Meleika? Take your kid, take a youth to the polls with you as well. Show them what democracy looks like. You know, it's important. I mean, that's where it starts also, where you show young people and give them the burning desire to want to do that one day. The burning desire to want to do that one day.
Make it a holiday in your house, in your family. Make Election Day a holiday.
Yeah, hello, that's a good one.
Yes.
So that's a good one. It could be a holiday in your household. And, you know, we have to praise and celebrate when people really did get out and vote, you know, and records show that people did get out and vote in 2016 and voted for Hillary Clinton by more than 3 million votes. But the Electoral College, we talked about the Electoral College.
Get rid of it.
Yeah, you know, we need to get rid of it because the Electoral College nullifies the popular vote. You know, she got more votes, but the Electoral College didn't allow her to win because states with the largest number of delegates, you know, you got to get to 270, right? And the person that gets to 270 wins. And big states have more electoral votes. And that's why some people believe that their vote doesn't matter. But it does matter because in local elections, even though the Electoral College dictates the president, when you look at those votes and you look at the areas where they came from, local politicians look at it. They look at who voted, what precincts voted. And you better believe precincts in local communities get better services than those that don't vote. Yeah, this has been another episode of Chicago Hill. And once again, we're going to close with Hillary Clinton's words. All right.
And if Mark was here, he would say, don't be stupid. Get out and vote.
And in state after state, they're doing everything they can to stop Black people, Latinos, poor people, young people, people with disabilities from voting. It's a blast from the Jim Crow past.